Hey everybody, this is Rashmi from Designhill, and I hope you and your families are doing well and staying safe. I'm super excited to be back again with another panel discussion, and today the topic of discussion is role of influencer marketing in today's time. So thank you so much everyone for joining us for this panel discussion. The event is brought to you by Designhill, which is the world's leading creative marketplace that caters to the creative needs of businesses and individuals alike to source high quality designs and buy unique products created by independent artists. Without wasting any further time, let me quickly introduce all our speakers for today. We have Amisha Gandhi. She is the VP of Influencer Marketing and Communication at SAP. She leads the global PR, AR, influencer marketing, and advocacy team for Ariba and Fieldglass. She has also created the global influencer marketing program and took it from pilot to a full scale marketing function across the company. Amisha, please go ahead and say hi to the audience.
Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here with my esteemed panelists, and I'm hoping to learn from them as well. Having founded the SAP Influencer Marketing Program, I think it's really important that we're always learning, and I'm really looking forward to talking to you about it from the B2B side and also from the B2C side, because I think that is really important, and they're both very different. And I look forward to this robust discussion with all of you.
Wonderful. So next we have is Olga Andrienke. I hope I pronounced that right. She has 10 plus years of experience in brand building, audience retention, demand generation, advertising, and marketing growth in B2B and B2C. Apart from that, she also has 6+ years of experience in leadership role, growing a SaaS B2B marketing team, which delivers significant market share and revenue growth. Olga, please say hi to the audience.
Be here, and I really hope I can contribute to the discussion. We started we're working with influencers at SEMrush around 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and it has evolved a lot. And I'm really excited to share our experience and discover more new ideas from panelists as well.
Okay. Next we have is Ryan Beers. He has been at IBM and in the influencer marketing space since 2016. Over the past 10 years, he has been helping businesses grow product adoption, build relationship with a community of users online and offline, and craft cohesive marketing plans and ignite employee advocates. Ryan?
Yes, hi. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to join the panel here and talk more about influencer marketing from my perspective in the B2B space. But as we all know, influencer marketing and marketing in general is definitely human to human. So excited to discuss more.
Wonderful. Next we have is Sarah Evans. She is the founder and CEO of Seven Strategy and Sevens Digital PR. Sarah worked with Chicago Area Crisis Center to raise more than $161,000 in 3 weeks exclusively via social media, and is honored to be a member of the Guinness Book World Record holding Beat Cancer team. Sarah.
Thank you so much for having me today. I feel really lucky that I've had an opportunity to actually partner with some of our panelists today on the influencer side of things. And then in my own day job, I do get to incorporate influencer marketing into lots of our client plans. So I'm excited to learn and share.
Okay. Last but not the least, we have Shini Park. She is the founder of multidisciplinary digital agency, which is called Cube Collective, and a creator of digital storytelling platform Park and Cube. Shini has worked as a creative director, photographer, digital consultant, ambassador capacities for brands such as Bentley, Coach, and Louis Vuitton, just to name a few. Shini.
Hi guys, I'm really happy to be here amongst our esteemed panelists, and yeah, I'm also here to learn. But maybe I could teach or share my experiences as an actual influencer. Yes, I've actually started maybe 10 plus years ago as a blogger, and I've seen the space grow a lot. So it'd be really interesting to hear how you've been you've been interacting with influencers, as well as how the professional world developed around it as well. Yeah, so really looking forward to this conversation.
All right. So thank you so much, everyone, for taking out your time and joining us for this panel discussion today. Before we start the session, let's quickly look at what Designhill is all about, and then we'll jump right back to the session.
Looking to get your boss to remember your name? Head to the world's #1 creative marketplace, Designhill.
When my company promoted me to head up our latest real estate development project, I was excited, then anxious, then petrified. How was I going to hire the team, get the designs completed, and design beautiful presentation materials on our lean budget while impressing my bosses, some of whom are still learning my name?
Good job, Mitch.
My name's Lawrence. That's why I went to Designhill and got the design help I needed that fit within my company's brand guidelines. The process was simple. Designhill's design contest ensured I'd get a ton of results I'd love. Start by picking a number of designs that inspire you. This one's good, and that one. This one speaks to me. Then share some information about the project. Lastly, pick a package that fits your budget. Do you just want a logo, or do you want it all? Then, boom. I got more than 60 custom design options to choose from, as well as all the other graphic design assets I wanted. And it's all backed by Designhill's 100% money-back guarantee. If I don't find a design I like, I get my money back. You can't lose. Now I have what I need to make a splash in my meetings. With everything from business cards, pamphlets, posters, and more. It's real.
Let the world know it's real and build your brand with Designhill.
All right. All right, everyone, that was a bit about Designhill. And now we are all set to start the session. Also, we'll take up questions during the session. So if you have any questions, please drop them in the questions tab on your screen. So let's begin, and let me start with Sarah first, and then I'll take this question to the other panelists as well to add on their opinions on this. So Sarah, please please tell us that I have heard this a lot of times that influencer marketing campaigns are much more effective than other forms of marketing. So is it so? And what are the benefits of having an influencer marketing campaign or strategy at place, and how does it help in terms of brand building and lead generation?
Well, I can talk about this from two perspectives. One, as a B2B influencer, and two, talking about the opportunities for growth in specifically B2B influencer marketing campaigns. There was a great report that was just released from Top Rank Marketing. It was really the state of B2B influencer marketing, and they found that there's still a lot of deficiencies in the space. It's still an opportunity for growth, and we're all learning. And the most effective campaigns are found to be the ones that are always on, meaning they're not just moments in time, they're just not segmented pieces, or I have a new report, study, or campaign, and now I'm gonna activate the influencers. It's really about something that is always happening. And from my personal experience working with the SAP, program and with folks like Adobe, we're not just activated at moments in time, we're consistently engaged, and we know what's happening in the company. We're treated almost like ambassadors or a third-party stakeholder that gets access to information. We're made to feel exclusive, participatory, and we get to know information maybe right before the media does, or in a way that helps us amplify and then use it in our own voice, in our own words, and then share it. Also, it really helps if your influencers are using your product, they understand it intimately and can speak to it with credibility and authority. And I know those are a lot of buzzwords, but they really do matter. So it's a combination of always being on, meaning you don't just activate in moments of various moments of time, and also that there's still a lot of opportunity out there.
Okay. Amisha, would you like to add to that why influencer marketing campaigns are more effective when it comes to reaching your target audience and building that brand out there?
So, and Sarah is terrific, by the way, everyone, as an influencer as well. And having folks like her to come on and amplify is really wonderful, and can help your program and your content come to life in a way that you can't do it yourself. And I think for your question, when we're looking at influencer marketing, we really look at it as a marketing function and not as influencer relations. So we go beyond just events and social. We go into co-creating content with our influencers in our demand gen assets, right, which is really important in B2B. And then, it can really help with website traffic. It can really help with attracting people to attending a webinar. So you're getting into lead gen. And then, coming over to the Cloud Business Group, really starting advocacy with our customers and our employees. So we have an employee advocacy and a customer advocacy. So when we take our external influencers and we bring in our partners, our customers, and our employees, and we look at an all-up influencer marketing function, and then we look across, in B2C, you come up with those campaigns that are social media based, because you can put the link out there and someone can buy Dove soap, or look at and make a car appointment to buy a car, right? But when you're looking at B2B, our cycle can be anywhere from 6 months to 2 or 3 years. So how do we engage the customer at all those points? So we want to take this influencer set and plot out against the entire customer journey, which isn't linear as well, right? And it's a lot of digital. And now, this year is such a different year. It's different than we thought. I think there's more of an emphasis on digital, and I think people are realizing the power of words online. And I think bringing your influencers into those things and into those discussions, they can even help and show you how to communicate to your audience in a very authentic way. And that gives your brand lift. And you're almost, what I say is like you're influential by guilt by association kind of thing, right? So to answer your question briefly, that's how we look at it, and that's how I would approach it. And the report that Sarah mentioned is really good because it gets into that, but there's also look deeper, look at articles and find lists of influencers that are covering the topic that you are looking to be a part of. And there is lists out there. We use a tool called Tracker, but there's no Google list out there. And I know because Sarah's on a lot of those lists, by the way, just but it's like you want to get the people that have the knowledge. And Sarah brought this up that some people we even have developers in our program. We have business consultants who have implemented our technology, and also our competitors. So when they speak to our customers, they have that knowledge set. And then we have others who are very knowledgeable at a new topic that can educate our customers. So back to you.
Okay, so Amisha talked about finding the right influencer for your campaign, and that brings me to the next question, which is related to that. And I'll take this to Ryan, and then I'll take this to Olga and Shini as well to add on their opinions on this question. So a lot of and I was looking at the registrations and the questions that were coming from the attendees, and this was one of the questions that we received the most, which was about finding a right influencer for your program is the key. Now, how should brands go about finding those right ones for their brand campaign, and how can they connect with them? So Ryan, would you like to add to that? Would you like to comment on this question?
Yeah, I think finding the right people is definitely important to a successful campaign. And there's tools out there like Tracker or Analytica that if you have budget that you can leverage to help identify the right people based on topical or keyword search. You can also do this manually, which is like the first couple of years of my role at IBM was all manual, basically putting in keywords into Twitter and hashtags that I thought were interesting that we'd want to identify, and just leveraging an Excel spreadsheet and building relationships with individuals through following them, through your personal channels, through the brand channels, if you have access to those, and just engaging on their content. A lot of times, I think that's really important to let them know that you're observing what they're posting as it relates to your brand or your campaign, and how it's interesting, and you find what they're saying really impactful in the marketplace. And I think it's really huge on the always on program that was mentioned earlier at the top of how do you build relationships over time, build them into a community, and really have this sense of relationship building first versus, hey, we have this one thing coming up in a blip of time and it's gone and it's really fleeting. Especially in the B2B space where things do take time, we have to kind of build those relationships over a period of time and build credibility in the space.
Okay, Olga, since we are talking about finding right influencers for your marketing campaigns, now a lot of people confuse this thing with the fact that an influencer who is having 100,000 followers could be a right one for me, and let's go ahead with that. So what are the key parameters or key things that people should consider while finding that right one, when we say that this is the apt one for our business? So how should people go about finding that particular fit right person for a business?
I think it really depends on the size of the company and then on the strength of the brand, because if the brand is not strong, then you will get really hard time getting the attention of the big influencers. They are always on the lookout for something new, but it's just that their information, capacity is limited, and I would definitely start with micro influencers or with smaller ones. And then, as Ryan said, Twitter probably is the first platform, at least what we used in the beginning. We just identified people who already mentioned us, and that's then we understood who had bigger or higher authority, and then who actually was just already promoting us, and then these are potential ambassadors, and then we worked from there. So when we were small, then I picked the people that were raising stars, and then we started growing with them together. So we amplified their presence, and then they amplified ours, and we also ultimately built this small community of people who were growing their influence, and then they all connected thanks to us, which really multiplied the impact. So this was really great. Also, what we did, we categorized SEMrush is in the digital software space. So what we did, we knew that there were people influencers who speak from stage. Then there were bloggers. Then we had book authors and also university professors. So with those different audiences, we knew that speakers needed content quicker, and they were always were speaking a lot of time. So they always needed new data, new information, so they could add a couple of new slides for each conference, which was so that you need just to send them a couple of really good content pieces and then graphs. Then with bloggers, they do blog, but they blog often, and then they would not really this is a continuous interaction. And then with them, we actually tried to amplify their content and tag them, and that's how we got their attention. With authors, you need to catch up every half a year, because they are writing a book, and then you just need to understand the right time. And then with university professors, this is they are the ones who build the future generation. So we also consider them as having a really huge influence, but this is not they are not as active on social media, but they actually have a really strong impact. And then we had a different behavior with each of the category, and we started with the people who had smaller influence, and then we amplified their influence as well further.
Okay. Sini, let me take this next question to you, and of course then I'll be taking it to the other panelists as well to add on their opinions. So we are living in this world where people are buying fake followers and positioning themselves as an influencer, isn't it? So what are these key metrics that businesses should evaluate or consider while they are searching for a best influencer for their business? And what are some red flags that businesses should definitely avoid when it comes to choosing a right influencer for their business?
Well, I think when you're a brand, and I mostly work in the luxury fashion, lifestyle and fashion industries. I think from the brand's perspective, the most important thing is to clarify objective with your team, because there are very different strategies that you need to approach and apply to your influencer marketing project, let's say a campaign, depending on your objective. So is it sales, or is it brand awareness? Is it more about bringing and enriching the culture around the brand? Is it is it promoting an event? Is it promoting? So it's just clarifying the objectives and understanding what influencers can do what, because even a micro influencer or a macro influencers have their own role, depending on what kind of niche, visual niche they cater to, or their following might have a different nature of engagement to each other. So influencer marketing, we can't really use one brush to really paint the whole picture. It's really quite a nuanced business right now. It's the environment has grown so much right now that we have so many different levels and characteristics and personalities within influencer marketing that I think you have to really understand the research needs to be a very big thing before you start engaging even anyone into a professional influencer marketing campaign. When it comes to building existing relationships, that's really important. Just like Olga said, it's building relationships on existing customers. So reaching out to customers that are reaching out to people who are already your customers. And I personally, from an influencer point of view, although it's funny because I personally do not like using the word influencer just because of how vast this landscape is. But from an influencer point of view, when I want to catch the brand's attention, I actually go and buy something. I call it an investment. I go to Prada. I just call it my excuse to shop, and I just buy something, and now I work with Prada. No, so it's a very good and authentic way of engaging with someone where you understand that it's a conversation. It's no longer
Shini, you are muted. I can't hear you. I mean, I think I'm not able to unmute you as well for some reason. I don't know why I'm not able to unmute. Otherwise, it usually doesn't happen that way. Shini, can you try to disconnect and reconnect once again? Okay. So in the meantime, she joins us back. Let's move forward and let me take this question to Amisha, and we'll continue from here. So Amisha, okay, she's back.
I'm back.
Okay, so okay. So Shini, would you like to continue with the existing question that you were answering?
Yes, yeah, I actually didn't have much to go on actually. Basically the fake following buying. I think the research stage is almost the most important stage of influencer marketing, especially that, we already had suggestions where the staff personally need to follow these influencers because you need to have this personal connection to vouch for the professionalism as well as their content of this influencer before taking it to your superior or your client, right? So following is easy. But then figuring out who has fake following and understanding that this the engagement is a little off. There's something, I don't know how to describe it, but there's something in the gut instinct where you notice that this person has a lot of following but very small genuine response to the content. I think it's not even about the ratio of likes and comments and all of that, because that's just the nature. But it's really just seeing the nuance of the responses coming from the audience that's really important. So yeah, I think the research is the most crucial mandatory part of, and very personable research from the staff members. So yeah, that's my fifth extent.
Wonderful. So guys, research is the most important part here, and I hope that you guys are getting the valuable inputs directly from our influencer marketing experts. So Amisha, let me take this question to you, and again I'll take it to the other panelists as well. So we are living in the world where people are, we're planning and executing this end-to-end influencer marketing campaign can take a lot of time and effort, right? So while a small business or a startup is planning to execute these campaigns, what are some key points that you suggest that businesses should consider while planning and executing these campaigns for less hassles and better results? So what are these key parameters or key points that they should consider before executing and planning this whole campaign?
So, while it's really fun to work with influencers and do these wonderful creative campaigns, as marketers, we always come up with these great ideas, is really you want to sit back and understand what the business outcome is and what your expectation and what the business's expectation is of your campaign, not just from the marketing perspective, but also from the business. We work really closely with sales and our business leaders and our product leaders to really understand what is it that their expectations and what is their goals in doing a campaign, right? And then we work very closely, because we are a larger company, work with many different teams, whether it's the global demand gen team or the events team, the social media team, right? So I have some of these things on my team, but when we look at pulling off a very large global campaign, we also have our regions to think about, right? So and even if you're a small business, you still have those things, whether you run it yourself and you're like the one person, or you have other team members that are running those functions. You need to make sure that the people, so the business outcomes, who are the teams and the right people that need to be at the beginning of the project, right? Then we talked about the influencers, right? Once you know those two things, then it will help you design and craft who are the influencers you want to bring into this campaign. And then you can go from there and understand, when we collect influencer content, we always collect extra because we can use it for social, we can use it in a, to amplify, but sometimes, we may not get the answer that fits in, or we wish we'd have, so we don't want to keep wasting people's time. So be cognizant of, influencers' time, take their feedback before you start executing on your campaign, right? So you're doing those 4 steps, but then you're also taking the feedback in, which is really important, because sometimes we think, oh my God, what a fantastic idea. And then we come out with it, and our influencer's like, this is like old news. Like, you should really be talking about this. Or, hey, did you think about framing up the conversation in your campaign this way? And that gives us the best chance of being very effective in reaching our business objectives. And I do share that with the influencers. Hey, by doing this campaign, I'm hoping to achieve X, Y, and Z. What do you think? And they'll tell you how it is, right? If it's achievable or not. And then you take all of that and you put your campaign together, you get everybody on board. And then when you execute, make sure you give line of sight to your influencers when you're launching, if it gets delayed or what have you. We create sometimes a WhatsApp group for events. We create a Jam site, which, is an SAP tool that gets all the content up there, all the background materials, so they're not digging through their email. You want to make it really easy for everyone involved. And then when we execute, we even, some of our influencers share their stats with us. We really know them really well. And then in other times, we have our own tracking tools, campaign codes. So you want to make sure that you have all the measurement things in place. Remember the outcomes, because at the end, everyone's like, oh, you did all this stuff. And then some, when you're speaking to executives and when you want to get more budget, right? Even if you're a small company, you're presenting to your CEO, you need to present like an executive dashboard of this is what happened, and not just the social media stats. This is the impact it had on this campaign and for the business. And I think it's really important we do that, whether you're in B2B or B2C. So for B2C, it's, sometimes I talk a lot to the folks at L'Oreal and other places, but they, they look at the things as well. They look at sales. What was the impact on sales from this campaign? And we look and put tracking links so we can see, hey, this influencer is really putting themselves out there and creating a lot of conversation. We look at everything because in the end, we wanted to be able to take a look back at the campaign and say, hey, this was successful in these regards. But hey, next time I think it would be better if we had more social video. Or hey, this influencer kept talking about it more than anyone else. Like, this person's really engaged with us, right? That also helps you over time figure out, which influencers are really engaged with your brand. And when I say engagement, that does not mean endorsement of your brand, because that's not what they're there for. They're really there to talk about the topic and to help educate their audience, and you're along for the ride and you get included in that. So that's some key things to keep in mind. So it's, outcomes, know your business outcomes, bring the right people to the table, make sure influencers are the right ones and get the feedback from them, and then make sure you've set up your measurement so that you can go back and have those things, and then be willing to adjust things along the way. So, do checkpoints as well. But you can do that if you're on your own, because when I started, it was just me and no budget, and I had to go pitch to all my other SAP counterparts for this program, right? And now it's a little bit different because it's become, kind of a practice across. And, we're even getting into things like, ABM on the B2B side with influencers, right? So you can get pretty deep if you really want to. But again, you need to have the business case, and you can only do that by sharing the outcomes. And then also it helps you learn and decide what's actually working and what's not. Something that we applied for the launch of something in IoT may not necessarily work for a procurement audience or, financial audience. So we really have to take those things into consideration. This topic is very complex because it's not a cookie cutter approach, even for on the B2C side. Depends on your brand and your brand values and what you're trying to actually accomplish. Sorry.
Yeah, there was something that you talked about in terms of like the feedback from influencers and that collaboration. And there was a question I saw from Todd talking about like how much of the message is like given to the influencer from the brand versus letting them kind of decide on how best to connect with their audience. And I think we always err on the side of collaboration with the influencer. We never tell them in my experience, never tell them what to say on social. We never tell them how to interact with their network. We kind of guide them to our goals, our outcomes, and what's desired. But it really is a collaboration. They know their network best. They know the space probably better than we do sometimes. We kind of get into our silos and our marketing people in our hats, and we think this is how everyone's talking in the marketplace. So when we have a conversation with them, and like to your point, like that's not what's happening in the marketplace, or that's old news, or this is what I know is, I saw this in a Reddit thread, and this is what's new and like, exciting. So I think that I put much more into like letting the influencers spread their wings. It does make some people uncomfortable internally at times, and you have to sort of have a crisis management plan for that. But we've never come across anything that was serious or like detrimental, because again, the influencers want this to be a relationship too. They don't want to put themselves in a bad space, because we all talk to each other in the influencer marketing space. We all know who the great people are, sometimes who are the people we might want to think twice about. So it's definitely beneficial for them to put their best foot forward too.
Yeah, and I think if you just, you could have those open conversations. Like we had an influencer actually midstream switch jobs to a competitor, called her and said, hey, we can't have you in our campaign anymore. And she said, I totally understand. So, no problem. Or other times you just have to be clear and say, we're not comfortable with these topics. So, please don't address them, or how can we handle this? And your influencer will let you know, like, hey, I'm not into that. So I don't want to be in the campaign. And that's okay too, right? But you've had that conversation. Oftentimes, like what you're saying, you don't have the conversation, and then something happens that could have been prevented because it just wasn't clear to the influencer. We hear that a lot from the influencer side. Like, hey, tell me if you want me to avoid something, because we've been burned in the past. So they look at that as well, right? If they're experienced.
All right, so this session is going amazing, and I'm completely loving the entire conversation. I hope you guys are also enjoying the session. Before we move forward, I would quickly like to give a quick shout out to Designhill. Let's take a quick break and keep this interesting conversation going on. I see a lot of questions in the questions tab as well. So once we are back in a minute, we'll take up these questions. So stay tuned, and we'll be back to hear more from Amisha, Olga, Ryan, Sarah, and Shini.
Colormatics is a full-service video agency based around video production. We created a brand that fit our identity at the time, but as we've evolved as a company, we found that that original brand didn't quite fit our aspirations anymore. Finding a partner to rebrand your entire company takes a lot of time and effort. Finding Designhill was an incredible lifeline. Designhill offers a money-back guarantee. If we don't like any of the designs, we get all of our money back. The stuff that we ended up with were well beyond what we had been seeing on other creative services platforms. After creating a simple design brief by answering some questions created by Designhill, we posted, and within a few days, we had over 250 entries. Designhill's platform made it easy to communicate with all of the potential designers. Eventually, we picked a winner. In addition to a logo, our designer also created a letterhead, business cards, and banners for all of our social media platforms. With Designhill's help, we now have a brand that meets our aspirations. We're ready for the future and everything that it's here to bring.
All right, so we are back again. So guys, we touched upon finding the right influencer, deciding the objective, planning and execution. And now let's talk about the ROI part of it, how a lot of time and a lot of efforts goes into planning the whole campaign and executing it. Even Amisha mentioned some of the point about finding the success in the campaign. So Sarah, let me ask you this. So how should we measure the success of an influencer marketing campaign, and what are these important KPIs that one should track?
I'm going to let some of my peers dig into some of the kind of down and dirty numbers, but I wanted to focus on one thing that I find to be really important. And when I work with brands on the PR side of thing, I often talk about people need to see your brand or experience it 5 different times in 5 different ways in order for them to maybe remember, for it to have a lasting impression and take action. One of the murky water areas of both PR and influencer marketing is that you can't always gauge if that interaction then prompted them to make a purchase decision later on. So one of the things I like to talk about are the softer side of things. What did that touch look like? What do we think resonated? And are there potential opportunities to follow up with people based on that interaction? Or are there ways to then use marketing to target those folks who interacted to designate another touch? And you have to think about what influencers are really good at influencing at, because it changes if it's B2B or B2C. If you have a product, you could do some really, especially makeup products, for example, you have a really great, tracking URL. And so there's an immediate purchase decision. My favorite influencer used this mascara, so I want to buy this mascara right now. Well, my favorite B2B influencer might be talking about a product that's really cool that I don't need right now, but now I get a new role or a new project, and now I'm going to go and find a reason for that product. And I remember that person talked about it, so I'm going to go and use that. So you start to look at, what are people good at influencing? Is it the purchase? Is it awareness? And how do you measure that? Some of these are still questions that are unanswered, but I think it's really important to think about and be aware of, depending on what you're selling and in what market. So I'll be quiet and let some of the other experts get to it.
Yeah, is any other panelist would like to add to that, which metrics to measure for calculating the ROI for this campaign?
I mean, I think from my perspective, quickly, is like, we kind of look at 2 things. Are we trying to build the brand or build the business? And if we're trying to build the brand, some of the metrics we might be tracking are, what's the engagement on these social posts if the influencer is tweeting or putting things on LinkedIn or Instagram? So are we getting likes, comments, retweets, engagement on the platform? And then if we are trying to build the business, then it's, what is our engaged visit from that visitor from the tweet? So for example, if an influencer tweets and we tag our link, our URL, they come to an IBM.com webpage, what's that engagement look like? Are they dropping off right away? Are they engaging with that page? Are they filling out a form to get into our nurture campaign? As we know, my team sells really expensive hardware, so people aren't going to probably make a purchasing decision off a tweet, but they are going to potentially sign up for a newsletter, or they're going to sign up for a webinar or similar thing. So we're going to get them into the nurture, but we want to make sure they're an engaged visitor. So those are the things that we look at through our back-end metrics on if someone saw an influencer tweet based on our URL that was tagged, they came to our website, did they fill out a form, did they engage with that web page, and therefore it was successful. We don't want someone just to click and then bounce right away. We want them to be an engaged visitor based on our benchmarks.
All right. So guys, I was looking at few questions in the questions tab and I see a lot of questions there. So Olga, let me put this question to you and then I'll take it to Shini as well. So this question has got 5 upvotes and the question is that what are the new opportunities regarding influencer marketing landscape and how it will grow with the changing world. So how do you see the future of influencer marketing in coming times?
I don't really think that it's gonna change much. The platforms change, and then it just depends where your audience is. So you need to identify the influences within the space your audience is most active at. But influences come from the word influence. So and then actually, what you need to understand is that influencers become grow their authority because they're constantly searching for something new, and then they're eager to share it. And this is in the nature of the influencers. So they actually were doing this like even free of charge. So before they started charging for the ads, then all of the beauty bloggers, they were eager to try all of the makeup, and then they just put the camera, and then they will be doing it even if nobody pays them because this is what they're passionate about. And so in that sense, I don't think that influencers are going to change much. So they will be passionate about the industries and about the products that they want to expose. They will choose the platform that fits their personality best. And then your goal is just to match your audience and then find the influential people within that space.
I agree with you. And I would just...
Yeah, Amisha, go ahead.
I would just add to that by saying, I think when we talk about influencers, I think it's influencer marketing has, influencers have been around since the dawn of time, right? Since humans have had opinions, right? And sharing, right? I mean, where did we used to get all our stuff is from our friends. And now we have social media, right? But so I totally agree with you. The channels may change, but kind of the construct and the idea and the strategy for influencer marketing remain the same. I think we'll see more of a growth, at least I hope, and I'm starting to feel it out, is in the advocacy piece, right? With customer advocates. So whether you're in B2C, I'm seeing more and more companies, and I actually belong to one of those companies called Trinity London, and they have a community of users, and they have their own Facebook community, own Instagram community. They have this community, and people are sharing and talking about the product themselves. They're not influencers, but they're influencers in that space, in that community for that product or brand. And I think we'll see more of the everyday person rise. We see that in B2C already, but I think you're going to see more of that also on the B2B side, where you have those sorts of customer advocates pop up even more, and get blended in with those quote unquote external self-made, kind of influencers, if you will. I think the advocacy and the advocates, whether you want to call them brand advocates or customer advocates, is on the rise. And I also think, because everyone now, especially because of COVID, is talking about employee experience, I think you're going to also see brands not just be, they're going to allow, and you're going to see more of their employees help the brand itself by becoming brands themselves. So I think in the advocacy realm, I think we're going to see more growth.
All right, Shini, I'll take this one to you. And you yourself being an influencer, I think this you can definitely do justice to this question. So the question is, what are the skill set apart from social media skills that influencer should possess and ought to be consideration by business? So it's majorly about the skill set that they should have to reach out to more and more brands.
I actually want to retouch on what Ryan said earlier, because you said something about influencers, letting influencers spread their wings, right? And I think that's a really good way of phrasing this, because in essence, brand partnerships with influencers is enabling them to pursue some paths and professional capacities that they've never even imagined trying. So it's getting that financial endorsement, or even if it's support or encouragement emotionally, even if it's an unpaid activation, you still get that kind of boost that grows this influencer. So I think it's really important that brands understand that this is not just a sort of a transaction, but it's really a nurturing system where you let the influencers grow within their own personal and professional journey as well. And wow, just going back to your question of, can you just repeat your question again? I think I just had a bridge and I just lost it.
Sure, sure. So the question is about having skill set as an influencer. What skill set they should possess, apart from just being there on social media?
Yep, exactly. So I think it's really important that the things that the brands enable their influencers to grow. So the professional skills, whether you're a photographer, you're a web designer. I personally come from a graphic design background, and I'm a photographer. But through brand relationships, I've allowed myself and challenged myself to grow in these little means, and now I'm able to art direct. I'm able to produce a big campaign around a 360 approach to the campaign. So we work with brands in a very different manner, along with the influencer marketing. So currently we offer influencer marketing for myself, but I also tag on, hey, do you actually need white card services for the same campaign, because this is something we can do, and this is something that you enabled us to, or myself, to be able to do. So as an influencer, I think it's important to be, first of all, professional, because I think there's depending on different industries as well, I guess in my fashion and beauty industry, there's a lot of youngsters that influencer jobs are maybe their first jobs. Maybe they've never had a job where they had to report to a senior or anything. So they don't have this professional experience and understand what return of interest even means to a brand. And I know a lot of my peers don't understand what a debriefing document is, much less a briefing document. Yeah, so it's professionalism, just being a responsible adult, and also understanding that it's, a transaction also at the end of the day. It's not just a a rock star. Yeah, you're a pretty person, here you go, some money. Yeah, it's that. I think just possessing your the baseline professionalism, but also really nurturing your own through own sort of background, I suppose, or your interest professionally. It doesn't matter. I think the more varied and the more sort of rich the background of influencers. I personally want to see a fashion influencer who has a biology degree. Like, I'd love to see what happens there. I just want to see this kind of like marriage and mesh of professionals coming together, working together to enrich in the space of influencer, the influencer landscape. Yeah.
Okay, Ryan, there are a lot of questions there in the question tab, so let me take this to you. I think we have covered a certain part of this in the bits and pieces as well, but let's take this question. And it is like, what are the key performance indicators and quantifiable measures that digital marketers should look for when partnering up with influencers or organization to grow the company's brand? So the key metrics that businesses should look for while they are choosing the influencer.
Yeah, so when we are discovering influencers or deciding whether or not to work with someone, we very rarely leverage their reach. So how many followers they have on social, because I think anyone can make an influence and influence someone else to make a decision, a purchasing decision. So reach, while it can be important in some aspects, it's not necessarily where we start. I think what I look for when evaluating influencers is their engagement on their content that they're currently sharing. So are they creating new content? So not just retweeting, not just an amplifier. Are they creating actual content that they have a voice in the space? And then also, is the audience engaging with that? We also leverage our employees. I think this was something that came up briefly, but leveraging our employees and who do they follow on social and who do they connect with are so subject matter experts or SMEs, and leveraging their networks to see who they're talking to, and then how do we kind of attack that in a way and see who they're networking with and engaging with. So I think I look at engagement. I don't necessarily know if that's like an end all be all, but that's something I definitely evaluate is how are people engaging with their content and are they actually producing new content? That's really important for us, that they're not just an amplifier, they have a voice in the space and not someone that just retweets a bunch of stuff or shares other people's ideas.
Okay. So also, Olga, let me take this question to you. Are there any legalities involved when it comes to influencer marketing? And from legal perspective, what advice would you like to share while onboarding an influencer?
So in some countries, definitely in UK, and I think in US there as well. There's an influencer in UK definitely. An influencer has to disclose that they have a partnership or cooperation with a company, and if the influencer or the company don't disclose that, then there could be legal implications. So what we did to protect ourselves, we have now an agreement with, so we share free accounts with influencers. We actually do not ask anything other than product feedback, because by that we ensure that influencers use the product, and if they like it, we assume that they're going to share it. But what we have in this agreement is that we reserve the right to say that they are the user, and then we can share the feedback publicly. So we are protecting ourselves in the sense that we will announce that they have a free product, and even if they say they don't, and so it's not implemented in every country, but since influencer marketing grows, then there will be more and more rules about that. And then I think it would be smart for companies to protect themselves in a way that they just have some agreements, even if it's a pre-product, then it would be great to protect the company with it's a A4 page. So it's just a really small thing. It's we send it with a DocuSign. We even send it with a Google form. They need to fill in their name, their surname, and the email address, and then it's automated, and then DocuSign fills everything from this form. And then already, like, the form signed from our side is sent to their email. What they need to do is click the link and then type their surname, and then it sends straight back to us. So it's basically like 4 steps. And then we're protected, and then the influencer has a free product.
Okay, Amisha, let me take this question to you. So Todd has asked that, do you see a difference between working with an influencer to market product versus when it comes to marketing a service? So is there any difference that you see? You're in mute.
Just realized I had the mute. And I lost connection, but I didn't have a question, so I was saved there. What we look at when you're working with an influencer, right, and it's a product, for a software product, it's still almost like a service, because you're not going to show here's my IoT sensor. I mean, you're not really going to do that, right? But you're really talking and describing the software, or if it's a real product like hardware, you're able to describe it, but you're not going to be showing it like you would makeup or hair, whatever it is on the B2C side, right? So when you're really thinking about product and you're working with the influencer, sometimes we're able, we show them demos so they can see what the user experience is, and they can experience it themselves. So when they're talking to their audience, they have a real kind of hands-on experience with it. When you're talking about a service, again, if you can give some sort of experience to the influencer so that they can talk about it from a experiential point of view, I think is very important. And they'll let you know what they didn't like about your product, and then you can give them the information so that when they're talking about it, they'll say, oh, well, there's going to be an update, or hey, this is something that's Rev 1, let's think about the marketplace and what it, they're able to frame it up in the right way, right? And then sometimes what the dings are going to be, and everyone is saying it, so it's not like you don't know, right? And so you can have these statements prepared to help your influencers tell the full story, but don't expect it to always be 100% positive, right? And we have to mitigate for that. And if you're able to do that, then that's great. And also through that experience you give to them on the product or the demo, they'll give you the feedback, and then you're able to inform them. Hello. And then on the service side, the same thing. If you can't give the experience, at least give them the knowledge so they're equipped. And most influencers, if they can't experience the service, if you give them the right amount of information, they can represent it correctly. And they'll ask you all the questions they need to represent this well to their audience. Because remember, they have built an audience, and that's what you're really tapping into. They've built up a community. And if they don't ask the questions, they know their community will. So they do a good job of that. And by the way, if you are having this always on relationship with your influencers, when influencers hear about you, good, negative, or positive, they'll come to you and say, hey, I was at this conference and I ran into your customer and they were saying this. Just thought you'd want to know, right? And that's really helpful to us in that two-way pattern. And I know that on the B2C side, that happens as well. They'll say like, hey, my audience had all these questions. Maybe we're monitoring it because we weren't in a campaign per se, but this is happening, right? And so they can help you even, mitigate some issues with your audience. But when you're looking at product or service, again, the best you can do to replicate experience or get them a hands-on experience is really important, because then they can walk the talk that they're talking about with you.
All right, everyone. We have very limited time here, and that brings me to the last question of this panel discussion. And I think this question will sum up our entire conversation that we have had and all the points that you guys have shared. And so the question is like, what are the biggest mistakes that people make when it comes to influencer marketing that they should avoid? And I would like each and every panelist to add on, few points to it to sum up the entire conversation and discussion. So Olga, let me start with you first, and then I will go to Amisha and Sarah and Cindy and Ryan.
I think they just want the biggest mistake is they want everything to happen instantly, and then they want the result without building the relationship first. And this is one thing about influencer marketing that takes time. If that's not advertising. So if you sponsor, if you pay for cooperation, then you can expect results to come faster. But if that's an organic, and then that's more of a relationship. So just don't expect, and then it's more of a give get than just asking the promotion and mention straight away.
Sarah, your last piece of advice on that: what mistakes to avoid when it comes to influencer marketing?
I think one of the most important things, especially in the B2B space, is not taking advantage of bringing your influencers together in a community aspect. Many times when people not only feel connected to the brand, but feel connected to the other community members, they can create better opportunities. And also I find that the better way to build your own brand influence is to allow others the opportunity to build up their own influence. And they can do that by connecting and building that relationship and getting access to one another.
Okay, Shini, please add to that.
Personally, I think the thing that I always struggle with is the first email that we receive from brands, especially brands that we've never heard from before and we don't have a relationship. I always find that the first email is like the first tone that sets the tone for the entire relationship. So it doesn't hurt to be nice. It doesn't hurt to also be respectful and show that you've done research of your career as well. And speaking of career, I think it's also very important not to make a mistake that this influencer is just an influencer full time, because a lot of people are juggling multiple jobs and they have so much skill sets. So use all their skill sets. That's my advice.
Ryan, your last bit on that.
Yes, I agree with everything. I also would say setting expectations internally is really important too with management. A lot of times you'll get requests for go build a top 10 influencer program, and you're like, what does that really mean to you, and how do you set expectations? Because if you start with the end in mind and decide your outcomes, you're not going to leave people up upset at the end when they thought that maybe you're going to have all these new views and all these new responses on your webpage. So setting expectations at the beginning is really important, and understanding your goals so that you can communicate that when your executive who might not understand in the trenches every day what is truly influencer marketing at your company or at your whatever, and what are you trying to achieve. So I think it's really important. It's easy to get started really quickly and to be like, send all these emails and like people sign up, but realistically, you got to build a community, you got to build the relationships, you got to make sure people internally understand what you're trying to achieve.
Okay, Amisha, any last bit from you?
I agree with what everyone has said, and just keep in mind that influencers are not there to build up your social media metrics or do your job. And if you're the one biggest complaint I do hear from our influencers when they're working with brands is that if you're asking them to do work, and it's not just come to an event and cover an event, you're asking them to write an article or do work, pay them for it, because it's work. And like everyone has said, they might have other jobs, right? So be mindful and respectful of people, and it's not pay for play, but do understand if you're asking someone to do work, no one should work for free, right? And there's value to that and to their time and to their expertise. And be kind in your first invite. It sets a tone for the whole relationship, and ask them what they're looking for also. Don't make it all about you.
All right. All right, everyone. This brings us to the end of this wonderful discussion with Amisha, Olga, Ryan, Sarah, and Shini Park. This was indeed a value-packed session, although there is a lot more that we could have covered and discussed. Unfortunately, we are limited by time here. I hope you guys enjoyed and loved this discussion that we have had. Once again, I would like to thank our guest panelists, Amisha, Olga, Ryan, Sarah, and Shini, for taking out the time and joining us for this event. So guys, this is not where it ends. We have a lot more events lined up for you. The next one is Power of Podcast and why businesses need to embrace this robust marketing tool. So if you have not registered for this webinar, I'm dropping this link in the chat section and you can register. You can look at the upcoming session and you can register for the same. Also, to stay updated with events like this, you can follow us on our LinkedIn page or our social media platforms. The link will be in the chat again. To watch this session and other sessions that we are hosting for you guys, you can always visit to our YouTube channel, or you can find the video recording on the events page as well. So again, the link will be on the chat section. For all the business owners who are listening to this and wish to source high quality designs and build their brand, you can visit designhill.com. Also, just a short announcement, we have recently launched a DIY creative tool called Designhill Studio. It's a tool for designers and non-designers to create beautiful collateral presentation, social media posts and banners. So check that out as well on designhill.com/studio. On that note, I would like to say goodbye to everyone who joined us here today. Thank you so much for taking out your time. Thank you so much for joining us. Take care and stay safe, everyone. Bye-bye.